I'm dealing. I should open it like that. Hello, welcome to Movie Takes. Right now it's 11:04 p.m. Central Time Zone. I'm Daniel McFadden, and with me is my good podcasting friend for life,
The James is kind of a little disturbed right now.
James Crow. Yeah, it's really late now, and I think that's the perfect time to talk about this 1948 Italian film called Bicycle Thieves. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this movie, Crow?
All right, so this is a 1948 film. It's a considered kind of the top tier of Italian neorealism. Um, so in which is typically working class themes, that sort of thing. It's the only one I've ever seen. It's
I'll have to take your word for it because this is the only one
It
yeah.
was originally released, the Italian name translated directly to Bicycle Thieves, plural. It was released in the U.S. as The Bicycle Thief, because the U.S. has to do everything differently. And then it was later re-released as the proper Italian title, back in whenever the Criterion Collection picked it up. Um, uh, Interesting story before we get into the review. I watched this on Netflix, and
I tried.
apparently I was the last person to watch it on Netflix before it got taken
Ever.
down.
Here,
Yes,
here's,
ever.
here's your trophy. You can
Well,
just put it
actually,
up there.
well, considering it's part of the Criterion Collection, which is supposed to be like a Hulu exclusive thing, I may have been the last person to ever watch it on Netflix.
Well, when you watched it, was there not like a thing that says this film will expire on such and such date or whatever?
If there was, I wasn't paying attention to it. I watched it at like 10:30 at night in bed on my iPad. I wasn't paying attention to that. But Daniel,
On your laptop.
Daniel goes to watch it, and he doesn't have an actual like start the movie button. Uh,
Yeah, like the movie wasn't showing up in my list, which was weird because it was there like for you just like few days earlier, and so I thought something was. I was trying to watch it on my TV, and so I thought something might be wrong with the Netflix program on my TV. Then I checked my PS3, same thing. Then looked on my desktop, laptop, or whatever, still didn't work. So I had to resort to Hulu, which has the Criterion Collection version of the film. And therefore, it was dubbed instead of subtitled. And so you watched the subtitled version, and I watched the dubbed version, which I probably would prefer.
yeah. Now I watched a little bit of the Hulu version, whenever you told me that it wouldn't play on Netflix, and it looked
Hmm.
like the version that was on um, Hulu did have a better like film to digital conversion. Like
It'd be the Criterion version. In Criterion, they do like remaster films.
yeah, the one
I
on
know. So
Netflix definitely it had a lot of like just it looked like it was transferred from like a print that would have been sent to a theater somewhere for sure.
hmm
Yeah, it had tons of
looked used.
it looked used and abused. It was
Hmm.
it was definitely it had like if you still if you went to movies back when there was still film projection, Daniel, I'm honestly not sure because you're a little bit
Hey,
younger than me.
no. The digital era came about while I've been alive.
Yes,
So,
but did you ever go to like the last week of a movie that's been running for a while?
yeah, yeah. In Springdale, back where I'm from in Arkansas, there was an old Malco theater, and yeah, it became around 2007 or eight. It became a second run theater, and in the last few years, I would go there. Yeah, and the print would look wore out.
Yeah,
So
the worst
crinkly.
the worst film print like the worst I've ever seen of that was my wife got free tickets to go see 300, and it had been out in the theater, and this was the old Malco
The one
theater
that, yeah, the one that
here
got tore down in Jonesboro.
yeah, in Jonesboro, and it had been out for like months and months. Like, I honestly think it had been out for 6 months, and it just had been that big of a hit that it'd still been playing. And this was the last week that the movie was playing.
Wait, what year was that? When did that come out?
2007 ish.
Well, that might have been in the in the last few years, like release windows for movies in theaters have been cut back dramatically. And but so if it might have been out 6 months, but that might have just been the natural window then.
Well,
So,
part of it too was because there were two Malco theaters in Jonesboro. What they would do is they were using that theater almost like a second run type theater too. Like, they would have showings of big hit movies at both theaters at the time, and then they would just let them linger at the old theater.
mm-hmm.
So I think that was part of it. But still, we go see this movie. It's been out forever, and it was terrible. like, like there were like parts of the film where like half of the entire like frame was just the film was destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, at any moment you're just expecting it to snap and just burn up or something. But
That would be bad.
But that was the worst I ever experienced. But this one was not that bad at all. But it was still
For a movie from 1948.
Yeah, for a movie from 1948 from Italy, But anyway, so getting to the movie.
Well, yeah. One note, we chose this movie because it's part of Roger Ebert's first collection of the great movies essays, and in the essay, Ebert wrote that in 1952, which was 4 years after the movie's release, as part of the British film magazine Sight and Sound's first international poll of filmmakers and critics, it was voted the greatest film of all time in 1952. So, and that was more than a decade after Citizen Kane came out, I believe, which is now like the go-to. Oh, that's the greatest movie of all time. But yeah, that's kind of the to give you context of what this movie was at the time. So
yeah, the one thing that I'm definitely I don't have a lot of context as far as the cinema. Like, I know that part of it from like you're looking at the Wikipedia article on it and stuff like that. I kind of want to know more about the context where this came through. I know it's post-war Italy, which so that's
which got the short end of the stick from the end of the war.
Yeah, so
seeing as it sided with the Nazis.
Yes, yeah, and it's I don't know. Italy was almost in a little bit of ways he's like the bully's sidekick, I guess, in history.
Bully's sidekick. I guess,
yeah. Germany kind of gets their redemption story later on, and Italy is just sort of, those people that have something to do with trains to most people.
Trains?
The trains running on time thing. I think there's like the saying is like Mussolini always made the trains run down.
Oh, okay.
But you know what I mean. As far as you're talking about history. Like I kind of want to know more about what the direct inspirations for the filmmaker was for this, because the world definitely felt very real.
Oh no. Yeah, this wasn't filmed on a backlot. This was filmed in thinking it's Rome, right? Yeah, it was filmed in Rome. So you're seeing the real conditions in which people lived in at that time.
Yeah, and even just like watching the movie, I definitely felt in the movie more so than I am in a lot of stuff. Like, I felt like I was kind of living in this world, following these people around, more than just watching a movie. Yeah, it pulled me in a lot. It made me want to learn more about kind of what the subtleties of what was going on, and things that say Italian film viewer at the time would have picked up on that I'm probably missing watching this in 2015
in Northeast Arkansas.
in Northeast Arkansas.
You know, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. During like the opening moments of the film, I felt like um, it's like it was a movie that easily could have been released or made in like 1937 or 1938 and been set in like Brooklyn.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like that's the other thing is that you have this like poverty in this whole setting, but and the poverty is in a lot of ways just, I know like a direct result of the war, and that was a lot of Europe at the time, not just the losing part of it, but it you're right in that it's definitely a war about a movie about class and poverty and basically just kind of surviving. People that are just trying to survive.
So I don't think it became. There's only one instance where the movie commented on class, and that was when the main character, Antonio, and his son are at that Italian cafe or whatever, and his son looks over his shoulder at a family behind him, and it looks like a more than well-off family eating spaghetti, and other stuff that they couldn't afford.
Well, when I say class, what I'm talking about is you're dealing with a very specific group of people who are in a very specific set of circumstances. They're not necessarily the type of people that you're, as an outsider, you're going to be seeing and think about. And then historically, it's people that are typically you're not going to hear about in these time periods. If you've ever like heard about like the great people version of history, as far as like, history is written about the people that stand out. And these were none of these people that would have been in this film are people that, we're ever going to know anything about. And when I say, so that's one thing I want to talk about just class is that it's these, you're dealing with a very specific set of people in this film, which is from what I understand, very important part of that, the was it neorealism or whatever the genre is. Yeah, Italian neorealism.
Hold on. Ebert wrote like what the definition of neorealism is. And neorealism, it's one of those film buzzwords that I see get thrown around in essays and stuff a lot without any context given to that word. Where'd it go? Come on. Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay. Neorealism, writes Roger Ebert, as a term means many things, but it often refers to films of working class life set in a culture of poverty and with the implicit message that in a better society, wealth would be more evenly distributed. That's what, according to Roger Ebert.
Yeah, so it's basically just saying, and that's kind of what I'm getting at with class you're talking about, anyway.
Okay.
Like, that is a whole tangent that we need that would probably be better.
Yeah.
But anyway. So, what did you think of the just storytelling style? It's this it's very simple, kind of story, but it still has this weight of coming from the kind of issues that surrounding with the poverty and everything.
Yeah, the storytelling, it reflects the mindset of the protagonist, because the main character, Antonio, just wants a job. He just wants to help support his family, and it's just the weight and yeah, like you said, the weight of it becomes heavier and heavier over the course of the film, and that where this character does things he wouldn't under normal circumstances. He slaps his son, who's he just kind of ignores his son at some points. All he's set on is trying to find a bike that was stolen while he was doing a job that the only way he could do it was with that bicycle, which his wife pawned off all their sheets to get out of the repair shop or something like that.
But it wasn't just the, sheets. It was basically it was part of the, I guess, it was basically a wedding present, which is really expensive and
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. So it wasn't just that it was sheets. It was something that was very important to them. It was part of basically a wedding gift.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're it's important that that he gets this job and he gets paid so they can unpawn that stuff because they're going to want it back.
And when they take the sheets to the whatever place they go to, you can tell that a lot of other people have done with their own sheets to do what they're doing.
Yeah, when the pawn brokers basically they take the sheets, they put them in a bag, and then they go put them on a shelf with what you kind of assume is a bunch of other sheets, other laundry, and it's on this rack, and they stick it on the top of a rack like 50 feet up, and it's just all bags.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a really good way of kind of showing that these people's desperation is shared, and it really builds out that the world of the movie.
And but yeah, all these events just build up. No one believing him when he says a certain person stole his bike. No one helping him to chase someone down. Having to deal with an old man who doesn't want to cooperate and taking them to the person they think stole their bike. One thing that kind of bugged me was that this is a black and white film, and so you have to trust the protagonist that he's seeing his own bike, because I believe it's supposed to be a red bike, but you have no way of knowing in a sea of bikes which one's his. Yeah. You have to trust Antonio that he's looking at his bike.
Yeah, and even then, I don't know about you, I didn't stop and go back and look at the point where the bike was stolen to see whether or not it was the same person he was accusing.
I actually didn't either.
So yeah, you're definitely have to trust this guy, and honestly I didn't necessarily trust him. I think that the movie does a really good job of showing his kind of mental condition, deteriorate further and further into desperation. And even he has, as you mentioned, he slaps his son, but then after that he goes and they have what basically for them, there is a splurge meal,
I thought he was having a manic episode.
Yeah, well, that's
how I interpreted that. He's spending money he doesn't have.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's a very common thing with people that are in really, really, that are really poor, that are in very, very that kind of situation where they basically just kind of get to this point where they just want to say, screw it, I just want to be feel like a normal person for a little bit, and they'll go spend money they don't necessarily have, buying something they can't afford, just because, constantly being in a situation where you're looking and you're seeking something and not being able to get it, that frustration just builds up and builds up and builds up, and it really can weigh on you and just do a lot to you mentally.
Did you take note that it seemed like up until the very end, the only people who seemed to have any sympathy with their situation were cops?
Yeah, that was definitely a something that stood out. I love the And, going back to saying, like, I didn't necessarily trust him, and he was definitely at a point where he was very, starting to come unhinged whenever they got to the scene with the house with the where he kind of confronted that one guy. But that cop there handled that situation so wonderfully. Like,
I couldn't do that. Like,
yeah,
there's a mob out there of angry Italians. I'm not touching that.
yeah. Like, I honestly, the person doing it, like the actor in that role, captured exactly what I would expect a good,
The ideal cop.
Yeah, the ideal cop. And I can't even imagine that. It's just something that you kind of when you see it.
Well, and the stuff we have to deal with today in the news with cops doing things they're not supposed to.
Yeah,
it was kind of it takes you back from. It's not an image of a cop you're usually exposed to. You usually you get ideal cops, but for the most part, you get dirty cops or cops with nothing to lose.
cops don't play by the rules.
Yeah, not cops that calmly handle a situation in order to disperse an angry crowd.
Yes. Yeah. So, and that just goes back to that whole feeling of the very real world that you kind of that I got from this movie. That is that like nothing took me out of it the entire time I was watching it. As far as I didn't, nothing stood out as being, off. It just felt like a very solid, well developed, world that just kind of allowed me to kind of exist there for the hour and a half of the movie.
And at the end of the movie, all the pressure just finally makes him make a very bad decision, and he steals someone else's bike, and the cycle of his situation continues, and the only person outside of a cop in the entire movie to take pity on him is the guy he stole the bike from.
Yeah, yeah. What I personally want to believe that this guy is someone who is understanding the situation. He's, or maybe he's someone who has been in that point in his life, so he's willing to let him walk away. I mean, all the other people in the mob that tackle him and track and pull him off the bike are ready to just hang him. And yeah, the guy who actually had his bike stolen is the one that is willing to.
Well, he saw that his son was there with him, and he realized that the worst thing I can do to you is let you go. So you have to live with your own son and the memory that he saw his own dad commit a crime.
Yeah.
So.
Well, speaking of the son, he was kind of one of the highlights of the film. Yeah. Did
you feel like you'd seen him somewhere? Because I felt like I'd seen him somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. He just was. I don't know. He had the perfect amount of like quirky kid, to where he was entertaining, and he brought a lot to the film without being distracting.
I think I seen a kid actor in like maybe an '80s movie that looked just like him.
Yeah, he has looked. He's only been in 3 films, and he was in Bicycle Thieves. He was in something called The Return of Doc Camillo, and a movie called The Barefoot Contessa.
I haven't seen any of those, but yeah, I think there's like an '80s or '90s movie with some kid actor that looked exactly like him.
Yeah, so I guess he was in a movie with Humphrey Bogart. So he.
Oh, okay.
He had a career.
Is he still alive?
He was born in 1938. No, well, I don't know. This doesn't say anything about him dying, but it's also Wikipedia. So, and he was in 3 films, so that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Bruno Enzio Staiola. Yeah, no. Guess he'd still be alive.
I
Maybe.
guess maybe he's been in more. IMDb has a lot more stuff for him.
He's got 15 credits. He hasn't been
He
in
did.
anything since 1977.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like I don't know. I really enjoy he. As far as kid actors go, he did very well. It
Oh
was really
yeah,
cool.
he was believable as a kid. Um, but yeah, like one thing.
Oddly, he almost felt like the most responsible person in the film. So,
Maybe maybe at times like I think one thing I almost forgot was like in all the stuff of him trying to find his job and the weight of that for like 2 minutes he thinks his son just drowned
yeah.
in the river, which would have been hell. That would have been so like yeah, that would have been the exclamation point on a downer of a film, as if that had actually been true, but it wasn't. So
Yeah. So, as far as like this sort of film goes, like have you seen have you watched any kind of things that have the same kind of feel to it? Like as far as either the same kind of like simple narrative with kind of weighty issues surrounding it,
well,
or
I wouldn't call it simple, but I just last week I watched a movie that came out last year called A Most Violent Year. Have you heard of it?
no?
It's got Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain as they played a married couple. It takes place in 1981, New York City. In 1981 is historically one of the most violent um, years of violence ever recorded in New York City. And Oscar Isaac plays this owner of a small, like, I believe it's just like a small gas company, like not like gas station company, but they actually like importing the gas and distributing it and stuff like that. And the main point of the movie is like he's trying to get the money in order to purchase a fuel holding station that's like right on like the Hudson, not the Hudson Bay, but right next to the water, which would make his job a lot easier. But over the course of the movie, an unknown party keeps stealing his trucks, and which is causing him, a financial hardship or whatever. And this company is also under investigation from the New York City DA's office. And the course of the film, his trucks keep getting stolen. Bad things keep happening to his drivers and stuff like that to lead to where he has to get desperate in order to get the money to purchase a place. And much like the Bicycle Thieves, where all the tension and the pressure keep building onto the protagonist's shoulders to do something bad, where in Bicycle Thieves, Antonio does that. In The Most Violent Year, Oscar Isaac's character, it comes to the point where he reaches that tipping point, and he does some stuff that would be regrettable, but he comes back from doing something that would have completely ruined him and his company. So
Yeah, I guess like I'm thinking, and I'm not sure I've seen something like that fits this sort of profile. Like I'm sure there are other things, but it as far as like movies, especially ones that are dealing with kind of weighty topics and that sort of thing, like they're almost always like almost overly complex or everything I can kind of think of. So I don't know. It was something that to me is almost kind of in a lot of ways incomparable to most stuff that I've seen. I really enjoyed it. I would definitely be open to watching more, films with a similar structure.
yeah, I need a category on Netflix that says just neorealism, because otherwise I have no idea what if it was neorealism or not. So I mean I would, yeah, I mean I'd watch them again, but I'd watch some more neo-realism films, but not like on a regular basis because that'd get kind of depressing after a while. Um, but no, I mean, it was a really good movie. It had a simple theme, simple message, simple structure that just created an effective through line to kept your interest and made you care for the characters and the predicament. So, no, I mean, it was really good, a well-made movie. And it's a timeless story. It doesn't have to take place in 1948 Italy. I mean, you could like I said at the beginning, like in your head, it could take place in 1938 Brooklyn. So, or where some other post-war country. So,
Yeah. So yeah. I I think this is something that I definitely would recommend to people to check out. It's something that I think that I don't think anyone would not be able to take something away from it. Some people are going to be
mm-hmm.
turned off by the fact that it's either going to be dubbed or subtitled. Some people are going to be turned off because it's black and white. But as far as just the actual the narrative and the contents, I think that it's something that most people would be happy having as part of their lives.
We didn't talk about the old woman who was giving people their
Oh,
fortunes.
yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, she, I mean, I know people can get desperate, but not desperate enough to like pay an old woman money to give them very vague.
Yeah, I honestly I almost kind of intentionally forgot about it just because having watched the film, it almost made me mad. Just having this character that's just taking money from these people that have none to just give them just absolute crap.
Mm-hmm. And I almost said like that was the one plot element that didn't add anything to the movie, but then it's like no, it didn't because Townie at the beginning says dismisses it as nonsense when his wife goes there, but by the second or third act of the movie, he's going there himself out of desperation to get an answer to where his bike is. So it does work, I guess.
Yeah, and just referencing the how kind of timeless a lot of these themes are in this movie. This past few weeks,
you told me last week that this movie was getting referenced a lot.
Yeah,
For,
this is what I was talking about, but in the last few weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago on John Oliver's show, he did a segment about televangelists and how basically they're scamming people out of money and using the fact that they're religious organizations as a tax shelter, and that's very that is a large scale version of what this woman is doing to these people.
yeah.
And so it's interesting. Obviously these issues. These are things that have always been around. I was in New Orleans a month ago, and there were fortune tellers set up everywhere. And of course they're hitting tourists, but most of these people aren't going to hesitate to tell some poor person that they're going to be rich if they keep giving them money. So it's I don't know. It's interesting to see the 1950s kind of version of that in a way. And like I said, the movie definitely still holds up. Better than most older movies that I've seen.
I think the story definitely holds up. It would be interesting to have watched this with like an Italian audience, like when it came out, and what the reactions to it would have been.
Yeah, I honestly don't know like how I would if I was part of that world, like the real version of that world. I'm not sure how I would feel about seeing a movie. I do remember saying something about how it did get criticism when it first came out for negatively depicting Italians. I can't remember who that came from. I think it was either like Italy or pro Italy groups, or it may have been like Italian American Association or something like that. But I do remember that. So I guess it was seen negatively as some people, when it came out. But I think, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I don't really.
Every movie takes on a different context once you, as a society, you leave that era in which it was produced. Like, movies that, like, just any movie that was controversial in 2000 is no longer controversial.
Yeah, yeah.
For the most part. So yeah.
Controversial movies from 2000 are just dumb movies now.
Or they, yeah, or it's like movies that were important and won an Oscar are forgotten. I mean, Citizen Kane lost out Best Picture to I believe a movie called How Green Is My, what was that called? Citizen Kane lost.
I don't know. And of course, the if you're talking about movies dealing with social
How
issues,
How Green Was My Valley. It lost out to a movie called How Green Was My Valley.
yeah. Well, if you're wanting to talk about if we're talking about movies that deal with social issues, there's the never-ending joke of that everyone always has about the movie Crash, the anything but subtle movie.
Yeah, I've never seen Crash, so like I wouldn't. I've heard stuff about it, but I've never seen it, so I can't really get those jokes.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, I don't know, I enjoyed it. So, would you recommend?
Yeah, but yeah, it's one of those movies like I don't know what mood you need to be in to watch it, if you know what it's about. So, but yeah, it's a nice piece of cinema history. Yeah, so I'd recommend seeing it. So far, I think the only outright movie I wouldn't recommend to anyone that we've done was Chinatown. So, right? Chinatown? Yeah, I think that's the only one.
Cool. All right, so I guess
yeah. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Late Night Movie Takes with Daniel McFadden and James Crow. You can reach us at movietakes.podcast@gmail.com. You can follow me, Daniel McFadden, at Daniel McFadden on Twitter. All lowercase, one word, MCFADIN. Take us out, Crow.
All right. I guess that's going to wrap us up. I'm at Krosky on Twitter. No one has messaged me still. That's not surprising. So I still don't use Twitter, but
follow us on Twitter at Movie Takes Pod.
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
Maybe.
Please. Follow us. Message us. We also have Facebook and all that other wonderful stuff. But do something involving the internet and us. All right. We'll be back before too long with another episode about another movie, and then we'll also have some other stuff that we've been talking about doing that should be also cool.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay plans.